почнем записа. И така, здравейте, добре дошли в Бизнес клуб на книгата. Аз съм Ганчо Ганев и съм основател на този клуб. Днес имаме голямото удоволствие на живо да имаме гост Роберт Влах, който е един от най-разпознаваемите лица в света, или по-скоро в европейската част на света, сред фрилансърите, което е много близко до хората, които са на свободна практика. Но първо малко за клуба, въобще за клуба на книгата, какво е, защо е и така. Сега да опитам да задвижа и тази презентация. Защо клуба на книгата? Съвсем простичко да откриваме бързо и лесно по препоръка или по актуално резюме следващата полезна и смислена книга. Да спестяваме от ценното си време, като вместо целите книги се възползваме от кратки резюмета или ревюта на книги. Да бъдем в среда на четящи и любознателни професионалисти, като така си помагаме да се развиваме както професионално, така и личностно, споделяйки си книги и мисли в приятна и подкрепяща атмосфера. Клуба на книгата е създаден за хора, които искат да научават повече, да се развиват, а също така и за организации, за които е ясно, поне според мен, поне това е моето мнение, че ако те искат да развиват следващите лидери, хората, които да израстват и да управляват другите хора, тези лидери, освен че следва да бъдат обучавани, да бъдат изпращани на различни курсове, тренирани, единственият начин те да поддържат уменията си, нивото си и да се развиват е като четат книги. Така че това е един от най-евтините и едновременно с това и един от най-ефективните начини да се поддържаме, да се развиваме. Ето, за това е клуба на книгата. Всъщност, това, което виждате, клуба на книгата представлява едно онлайн пространство, което е в интернет и в което имате възможност, една платформа, в която имате възможност както да споделяте книги, да препоръчвате, да виждате оценки, да давате мнение, да препоръчвате на колеги, да обменяте мисли, идеи и всичко това се случва абсолютно независимо когато и както ви е удобно, когато искате вие. Просто влизате в това пространство и имате всичко налично. Всякакви книги там са като заглавия и съответно също така можете да видите и кратки резюмета, които са написани от хора като вас за хора като вас. Също така може да получавате онлайн препоръка за книга, която някой решава, че тази книга е точно за вас, или съответно обратно вие, ако прочетете някоя хубава книга и се сетите, може да кажете препоръчаме на някой друг. Имате и виждате всички хора, които четат определена книга, може да следите някой човек и да решавате. Тоест направено е максимално удобно. Също така, всеки месец, както сега с Роберт, имаме гост, на който се учим допълнително на неща, които са директно от хора с практика, опит и с вече позиция в, да не кажа в целия свят, но поне в една голяма част. И така, продължаваме. Днешният гост е Роберт Влах. Както вече разбрахте, той е опитен бизнес консултант, специализиран в подпомагането на независими професионалисти и собственици на бизнес. През 2005 основава една от най-големите национални фрилансърски общности в Европа, която се разширява в платформата, която може да намерите в интернет, Freelancing EU. През 2012 той основава първата в Европа, тъй наречения мозъчен тръст за фрилансъри, който се среща редовно в Прага и други градове, както и онлайн. Провежда курсове на свободна практика, повече от десетилетие и е консултирал над 300 бизнеса и физически лица, стартиращи фирми, също така и компании. Книгата му за фрилансърство се превръща в международен бестселър, публикувано на английски като The Freelancer Way от HarperCollins през 2022 година. Робърт живее заедно с семейството си в Чехия и Испания. Те също са и тук. Така че надявам се, че можем някъде да се срещнем с семейството му. Така, съвсем малко за книгата. Това категорично е бизнес книга за независими професионалисти. Тя съдържа най-добрите, най-пълните и най-новите ноу-хау техники, придружени с стотици качествени източници. В това число проучване, последните пазарни данни, съвети от първокласни експерти, както и реални казуси и истории на професионалисти, работещи в различни сфери и държави. Това прави тази книга изключително релевантна за свободно практикуващите по целия свят. Тази книга е един пътеводител във всички хора, които искат да излезат на свободна практика или които са на свободна практика. Лично аз, прочитайки я, мога да твърдя директно, че вътре ще намерите изключително голям набор от практически съвети и това, което за мен е изключително ценно, че всъщност Робърт преминава през целия диапазон от началото до края. Прави го по един такъв начин, който не оставя по никакъв начин в мен лично съмнение, че той е минал там и, не говори, и това, което споделя, се личи, че е изпитано и проверено. Тоест, не е нещо, което е теоретично, което е намерено някъде или прочетено в книгите. То е практически и е подробно. Наистина обхваща целият спектър на това да излезете на свободна практика. За мен тази книга е един много подробен указател, който вие може да ползвате като пътеводител. Сигурен съм, че много неща знаете. Сигурен съм, че много неща ще проверите и те ще са ви полезни. Но, когато ги прочетете, със сигурност ще откриете, това го знам, но ето тук съм пропуснал нещо. А още по-важно е, че винаги може да погледнете, да отворите главата и да отидете точно на мястото, което в момента ви интересува и вместо цялата книга, която наистина заради обема си и заради подробностите е близо 500 страници, всъщност, отваряйки на тази страница, на този дял, вие наистина можете да откриете това, което ви интересува и да ви е една перфектна референция за конкретния ви проблем. Пълна е с препратки, които са към други книги, ако искате да разберете повече за определеното съдържание, определената глава, и е пълна с статистически данни и информация от източници. Също така и с приложения, които нагледно може да използвате. Така, толкова от мен за книгата, с моите лични думи. Сега е време да дадем думата и на самия Робърт. Okay, so now it's your turn. I already explained shorter about you from your resume, and also the book I left aside what is written in everywhere in the internet,
sure.
and I explained on my own word what is about, what your book is telling about, what is the benefits, how the people can use it with my own words. But first, I will give you the words to you and to share with us, with all the people in front of us and also online, anything you want to share, and especially about the book.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. It has been quite a joyride, being here in Sofia, and I find small debates like these especially useful and helpful, because it sort of allows for detailed questions and detailed discussions. I don't know if any of you is freelance, I suppose yes. But anyway, the book is not only for people who are freelancers, who are starting as freelancers or experienced ones. It sort of covers the whole scope from beginners and wannabe freelancers to freelance veterans. But it's also, I would say, a book for people who want to understand freelancers better. These may be clients, so you may be running a company and hiring freelancers, and you may be running an HR department, reaching out to freelancers, I don't know, on social media, on LinkedIn, and trying to hire them. And there is generally a misunderstanding between these people who hire and freelancers themselves, because their way of doing things and their way of thinking is quite different than from people who are hired as employees, right? So it also enables people who work with freelancers on a regular basis to understand their deeper motivations, their interests in a business relationship as well. And well, it's also meant for people who are researchers or just academics, trying to understand the field better. So my ambition was, and still is, to write on the subject as evidence-based as possible. So basically, I was really excited about the reception I got from the academic sphere, because for freelancers the book was written, right? Like I knew what the group is. I know hundreds of freelancers, or perhaps thousands in person. So I knew that for them the book would be relevant. But what really surprised me was how well it was received between people who do sort of like economic and business research in the academia and trying to study the phenomenon itself. It's probably not relevant to this audience, but yeah, I got great feedback from there as well, because it's not, the whole subject of freelancing is really hard to study, because there is not a single definition, a universal one worldwide, defining a freelancer. So you may sort of define it like very strictly as a sort of like advanced professional offering something on the free market, but you may also define it very loosely and count everybody who has even the tiniest income from a free market as a freelancer. US platforms do it all the time. So whenever you read a news article that a third of Americans are freelance, this is exactly what I mean. It's an overblown number that totally doesn't reflect the reality, because out of this third of population, of working population, only perhaps third of this third would be full-time freelancers, and the rest would be, part-timers, people who sort of install some app and have some extra income, sort of freelance, but they are not really thinking of themselves as of independent professionals or freelancers. They don't have this, like career vision, doing this for the long term. So that's why this subject is pretty much difficult to grasp, and my goal was, and still is, actually to enable people who are not directly involved with this movement to sort of get through the marketing stuff produced by some freelance platforms, whose aim is to sort of like overblown the phenomenon, to make it larger than it actually is, in order to persuade the investors to invest in them, So every time you sort of read about freelancing in general English in general English public discourse, you always have to discount for that there are platforms sort of like trying to sell you their vision of what freelancing is, and how big it is. While if you are actually a little bit skeptical, a little bit more scientific, and a little bit more research oriented, you may reach completely different conclusions, So my book was also aiming at actually enabling this dialogue, in the public domain, so that people understand freelancing better. So that they are not, steered by this marketing talk to think that every second American whatever is a freelancer. It's not.
Okay, that's a very good direction of leading this conversation, and I would like to give the word to the audience here for asking questions, and you're welcome. Also, for the people which are listening, please write your questions in the chat so I can translate it to Robert, and you can get answer. So let's make a discussion instead of I'm asking my own question. I believe I will have this opportunity anyway. So, gentlemen's lady, is there any questions?
I will ask a few.
Sure.
Mr. Vlach, first of all, thank you very much for your lecture and being here in Sofia. My name is Mr. Lekov. I'm an architecture and designer.
Mm-hmm.
I would ask you, when you finish your lecture, if you can sign up all the book.
Of course, I would love to.
So, hand it to you.
Yeah,
You
thanks.
can ebook some words. Why I'm here, I'm owner of a company that's been established in late ages ago, 1989. My parents are architects. I'm an architect, my sister as well. I'm a designer, I graduated in England, in London. I moved back in 2009 and worked in Bulgaria, Sofia, where I come from. The main problem that we meet here with our clients and customers are with the payments. And regarding the changes of direction of the design and architects, that's what we do for a living. We are architects and we do architectural projects and we do interior and exterior as well. We sign a contract, we have certain requirements that's being written very carefully and very specific for a certain amount of work, which is related to a certain amount of payment and it's to be completed for certain days. Most of the times it's up to the clients, of course. They change their minds during the process and they require something completely different. Then this obligates us to do another project that involves us with more work, more time, and at the end of the day this is more payment, which this coming the conflict when it's coming and asking them and represent and submit the amount of work, the time and the colleagues that's being involving in this kind of work. They are not happy and they are disagree with paying this extra work that has been required by them. So I wrote about you and all the lecture that will be in one of your main topic will be how to protect us from fake clients for not nice or I don't know how to say good clients that they're appreciating our work. Most of the time that's what's happening in Bulgaria. We work in England, we work in Switzerland, we work in France. Most of the times, I would say all of the times this not happen. But in Bulgaria this happens.
Yeah.
Unfortunately in Bulgaria that I'm coming from and I love my country, intellectual work is not putting in a place that it should be.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my question, how to protect our work and what else is a documentation to sign and prove and able to get our work is payments as well.
I get
Thank
it.
you very much.
Well, first of all, thanks for such a detailed question. I would begin by sort of, splitting it in two areas. First of all, I believe that the solution would be completely different for a company and for an independent professional, because company has a sort of potentially unlimited capacity for work. So if you have a greater demand for your services as a company, as a agency, I would say, you are sort of expected by the clients to hire an extra worker, whatever, and take on more work. That's what customers in general expect from a brand. So there the solution might be pretty complex, and I won't get into that because it would involve a completely different framework of how we speak of business. But I can give you pretty detailed answer how this would be solved in respect of independent professionals. If it would be an architect, presenting your own name, you may have helpers, but you are still the go-to person within the company. There is a specific category used for describing this kind of business. It's called freelance business owner, meaning that you have a sort of a small business, but you are such a central person to that business that without you it just wouldn't be possible, basically. So it may be a sort of agency, but it's clear that it's based on a exceptional ability of the individual. So it would still apply, to this kind of business as well. Well, the general solution to this definitely comes down to the basic demand and price relationship. You know, there is this major mechanism, you know, like influencing work and the price of freelancers, that the price in general always relates to how busy you are, how occupied you are with your work, you know. Just imagine, you know, like if you would have, you know, a work lined up for the next half a year, you know, and a client would come to you and tell you, well, give me a discount, right? And you would say, well, I cannot give you a discount because I'm booked for half a year in advance, so it doesn't make any sense. I'm hardly getting along with my own work, so there's no reason to give you a discount, you know. So your occupancy is basically creating a sort of, you know, pressure that you may apply in business negotiations. And in general, when you are raising your prices as a independent professional, if you have a higher demand, so there is more demand than you can actually take on as a professional, this pressure basically allows you to increase your price. So basically, if you are, I don't know, like occupied at 90% or perhaps 150%, meaning that you don't work 8 hours a day but 12 hours a day, right? So what you do is that you raise your price, and that will, you know, sort of like eliminate part of the demand for your services, right? Because for some clients it would be too expensive and they would sort of, you know, seek a solution or you know, the service provider elsewhere. That is quite clear, right? But what people often don't realize, you know, and that is essential to a problem, that you may not only use this demand pressure to negotiate for better prices, but you may also negotiate for better conditions. So, for example, if you are at the peak of your occupancy rate, say, I don't know, 100% or 120%, you have a choice. You may translate this increased demand into a higher price, or you may say, look, from this moment on, we are taking, you know, 50% advance payment on any work. That's my general condition. That will also lower the demand, because some clients would say, wow, this is outrageous. I mean, like, how can he ask 50% advance? I mean, like, but this is not your war, right? Like, I mean, like, these are probably not the clients you want to work with, and they would leave you and they would seek elsewhere. Trust me, they won't be angry for long, you know. You sort of just not only meet their sort of expectations, but what it would create, you know, for you, is that you would take this like increased demand into better working conditions, and you may do it for a long term. So you may start with a 50% advance payment, but then when you get occupied again, you know, your occupancy rate also increases because you sort of gain your reputation, you get leads from former clients, so you may also once again reach a point where you are quite occupied, and then instead of, you know, raising the price, you sort of, you know, change the condition again and you ask 70% advance, whatever, you know. For example, I'm a business consultant and I take always 100% advance payments. It's quite unusual, you know. It's not definitely, yeah, it's not as common in my profession. There are many of my colleagues who work without any advance payments, but I decided, since I work internationally and you know requiring payments, you know, internationally is more complicated than within a single country, I decided that this is what I want to turn my demand pressure into, and it works. I mean, like, of course, did I lose some potential prospects and clients? Of course I did, but these were exactly the people I don't want to work with. Yeah, so the basic mechanism is actually really simple. The only problem there is that you sort of have to manage your business in a way that your overall occupancy steadily grows. So you have a great reputation, that you do enough marketing work so that you generate enough leads for you to work with, you know, and then it's perfectly simple. The only problem then there is to have enough leads and enough, you know, work in your pipeline to sort of support this demand pressure, and then you can really steer it, you know, into higher price or better conditions, or sort of, you know, redrawing the whole playing field for yourself, you know. So I have this, and I will conclude with this. I have this saying, or like example in the freelance way, in the chapter on negotiations, that as a freelancer you sort of, you know, draw your playing field for your business. You know, you do exactly the same way, same thing, by saying, for example, look, I don't want to work with clients who, for example, are active in porn industry, or I don't want to work with clients who manufacture weapons, whatever. You know, you may have some sort of, you know, ethical codex of the companies who you don't want to work with, and this is also part of the playfield designs. And you as an architect, you know, can be pretty much familiar with the concept. You know, like you design not a concrete building, but you design an abstract location where you actually feel comfortable as a business person. So that's the solution in a nutshell. Does it make sense?
Yeah, of course. I mean, everything that you said is making absolutely sense. And as I said, we have a huge experience with one of the major architecture company in Bulgaria, very famous. Anyway, I spoke with many colleagues in many of our fields. And even we hire a lot of freelancers that they do it as a professional, they do it as a hobby. We're paying them, we're signing a contract, we're paying their taxes and etc. They're meeting the same problem. Like, unfortunately in Bulgaria, most of the construction companies are kind of a, if I can say, gray section. Unfortunately, easy legal money. This is something which we meet this problem in Bulgaria. This is something that we have to talk about.
It's
unfortunately, and there's a lot of money in the construction. Most of the money are in the construction, in the design and the architects. As a drawing and being an architect, the money in Bulgaria are very low. You can cover maybe your office expenses, your salaries, your taxes, and that's it. Maybe you will be 0 by 0. At the end of the day, when you put the line of what you get. As your example, most of our contracts we are getting between 60 and 70% advance payment before on the day we sign the contract. Our dates of start working the project is when we receive this 60 or 70% money in our account. Then the dates of the completing the work will start calculating. Do you understand what I'm saying?
yeah.
So in this way, the demand is low, but at the end of the day, in the middle of the process, they say, we design this bookstore. In the middle of the design, they say, it won't be a bookstore, it will be erotic bar. You said porn industry, that's why I put this word.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't work with
sure.
Same, I agree with the ethic, we have this, we are more than 35 years on the market. My dad's been working 30 years in the previous time of Bulgarian society, if we say this. Never been a communism, but then we say communism anyway. So we have a huge experience, but they say we want to win an erotic bar. You have to completely change the design. You have to start working over and over again, which is a new work, a new time, a new effort, and as what you said. And when you say this to the client, he says, no, you just press enter on your computer, and everything will be changed by itself.
Yeah, I know.
This is the most problem that we meet, not just our company, many of our colleagues in Bulgaria, many of our freelancers in Bulgaria as well. Many of the freelancers that they work very heavily at the moment, they do the 3D of all of the buildings, and most of the buildings that they are sold and built in Bulgaria at the moment are ripped off from the investors.
Yeah. Well,
so this is a huge problem.
I have two things to add to this, perhaps. First of all, I don't think that this problem is only relevant to Bulgaria. I have encountered several other countries where I was told by architects that they went through the whole university without having a single lecture about how to run their business. This is a huge problem. I mean, like, if you study a certain profession and you don't receive any instruction whatsoever, a single lecture about how actually the business is negotiated, conducted, covered, this is a problem of schools as well. You know, like, I know that some countries don't have this issue, but some may have. And another thing, you know, like, I would say this, it may sound harsh, but don't take it personally, okay? Look, if a problem occurs once, that you have this issue with the client wanting something different and sort of, you know, trying to manipulate you in a way, it may be the problem of the client. The client may be toxic in a way. But if it happens all the time, it's your problem. It's something that fails in your negotiation process. So I would generally recommend, you know, like, if it's repeated, if it's quite often, you know, don't blame the clients. Just, you know, try to look in how you contract, how your initial negotiations with the client look like, and try to insert preventive measures, you know. For example, if this would be, you know, recurring problem happening at almost every second instance, right? What I would recommend then is to have a 1 hour session before you start with the client and tell them, look, it may happen that you may decide in the middle of the process that you want to, you know, shift the project to a completely new assignment, you know, and in that case, you have to be informed that this would be a new assignment. So think very carefully about what we sign, what we are creating, because if you come to me later and say, look, we need to turn this into like a strip bar, I'm definitely not going to do it for the same price. Are you okay with this? Yeah, and if he say yes, or if she says yes, you know, and then you say, well, remember we had this meeting in the first place? So there we are, you know, so I would say the general rule is like, don't blame customers too much, you know, like, customers are, well, they are sort of, you know, drawn by the overall business culture, you know, they are sort of, you know, handling too many priorities advanced usually, they are not experienced, and they sort of, you know, come to us as advanced professionals, and they sort of expect that we will lead them to a expected result without as little hustles and hurdles as possible. You know, it's pretty much similar if you, for example, would like to operate your eyes, you know, you would go to a surgeon. You also wouldn't tell the surgeon how he should proceed with the operation, right? Like, you would have this general trust that whatever they recommend is basically the best for your situation, that this procedure, this examination, this test is necessary. You wouldn't try to sort of, you know, steer them in a different way because it would eventually endanger your health or your eyesight, whatever. And I think it's pretty much similar with many other advanced professions, that the client doesn't have the information, they are just uninformed, and they sort of have this implicit trust that we sort of know what we are doing, that we radiate some confidence, and they sort of go with it until they lose this confidence by, for example, running into situations they were not prepared for by the professional, you know. So that's why I'm saying that if it happens all the time, this should be basically managed by your onboarding process. There's this thing called onboarding, right? Like, you are probably familiar with this, and this should include it. My spouse Lenka there, she's a name maker, slogan maker. She does very specific kind of copywriting. She creates only the names of brands, whatever. So it's like a very specific, knowledge work. Result of her work is a single word. I mean, like, don't tell her about how people don't value, the results of their work, because, anybody can say, well, come on, it's just one word. I mean, like, how can you charge 4,000 euros for that? It's outrageous, right? And in her profession, what they do, in order to prevent such situations, they when she gets an assignment, she doesn't work directly on it. The first thing they do with their client is they create so-called creative assignment. And this is basically a document. It's not specific to your profession, but quite specific to hers. They only talk with the client what is to be created, like what are the boundaries for her work. Like, can the name for the company contain only one word, 4 words? Like, what's the tonality? Like, should it resemble something, or should it be completely abstract, whatever? And she begins her work only after she and the client agrees that basically the creative assignment is 100% correct. Until then, no work is done. If the client needs 2 months to basically figure out what he wants, that's the 2 months he has to wait until she starts working. So various professions in the freelance industry have different means how to solve this problem of uncertainty between you and the client. And if it happens often, usually the good solution is basically to improve the onboarding process overall.
That's excellent questions. We have excellent answer.
Yeah.
I hope it's really something which is
Yeah,
perfect.
you're more than welcome.
You can continue after that. Speaking about it, there is a question which is coming online, and maybe it's really interesting for most of us. And it says how we can be more competitive to Indian people, but to, let's say, to people which are selling their labor, their goods, whatever they're producing, cheaper, because based on the experience of the person who is asking the question, they're quite aggressive. So I can translate the question, how we can compete with the market where there are people or there are participants with much lower prices.
Yeah. Well, this question is a sort of I encounter it a lot, but I think it's more like a general concern than a real concern, because have you ever tried to hire an Indian freelancer on Fiverr and work with them actually? No, it's just a rhetorical question.
Couple of my customers I'm working with that they do.
Yeah, they have a different culture. They have different work ethics. There are cultural and language barriers that are pretty much impossible for them to, cross. It would be the same for us, trying to cater to Indian market and Indian companies with their specific requirements, right? Like it would require, perhaps come in there, living there for a while, and to understand how the business is actually conducted. But look, for example, I have this story. I hired a Indian designer on Fiverr to animate a logo. Like, it was really simple work, I carefully picked the person who had 1,000 ratings. Almost all were 5 stars. So I sort of expected like a top level service, and it was completely opposite. I mean, first of all, he was working on some really ancient version of Photoshop or whatever. So the files I sent, which were, in my opinion, in completely normal format, were totally unworkable for him. And then he sort of, created several versions that were completely missing the points in my assignment, So it was unusable. And I paid him, I don't know, like $20. And guess what? Of course I gave him 5-star review. Because he's just some poor guy in Bangladesh, and I won't be ruining his, livelihood, by giving him a 1-star review, and but I sort of, realized, well, this was totally pointless exercise, because the quality of the work was really so bad that even if I closed both of my eyes, I couldn't use it,
But let's translate it, the question, not to compare to the Indians, but to the...
So, what I mean is that this is a general concern, but in reality, if you just consider the regular work that freelancers here in Bulgaria do for their clients, they cannot be easily replaced by somebody who is sitting on the opposite side of the world, with the time difference, with the culture difference, with the language barrier, with the culture barrier. I mean, like, this is too hard to cross, I would be perhaps more concerned about AI tools, which are getting better by the day, and they may definitely be a substitute for a low-skilled freelance work. That's for sure. I mean, like, ChatGPT, for example, in some copywriting assignments, some text revisions, for example, not in Bulgarian, not in Czech, because the original model was trained mainly on English, so don't judge it for their Bulgarian or Czech skills, but in English, it's really getting, really strong. And I have to tell you, I've been using it for some translations just to speed up my work, and I have to say that the translation into English is almost as good as human, if you know how to prompt it, so that there definitely lies a certain risk for people who don't keep up with the technology, who just don't adapt. And I would be more concerned about this, if you are a knowledge worker, catering to the Bulgarian market, then being concerned that the Indian guy would come and take a job. It won't happen.
Okay. So, is there any question? Sure.
Won't probably happen, to be correct.
I also have an input about the Indians. I completely agree with you on the fact that the problem kind of solved itself, because we had a case a couple of years ago. I was working for a huge company, and we had a contractor, which was another huge IT company, and they decided to switch their support to India because of the cost. 1 month. It took them 1 month to go back to Poland, where their original support was held. And it was so much fun during that 1 month, like the complaints, the things that we were getting, the service. It went so bad as to, because they were also doing some aeroplane software. So it went so bad as to, like, a couple of major incidents happened. Luckily nobody was hurt, but they just saw something on paper. They said that's so much cheaper, we're gonna go there, we're gonna do great, and then it backfired so bad. So I don't think.
Yeah, and a lot of it is just misunderstanding. I'm pretty familiar working with Indians because my book was published there, and all the media people, all the publishers, all the editors I work with there were like 100% professional. I mean, like, this is not like a general observation about the country. It's just, how Fiverr works, for example, how this particular service is structured, because it sort of, tries to own the client-freelancer relationship. I couldn't send my email address to that freelancer because Fiverr would immediately flag this conversation as a violation of their policy, so basically it disables the direct communication in a way. That was a major issue, because otherwise I would call to this guy, whatever, we could have a call, but we couldn't, and You know, so I wouldn't extrapolate from Fiverr to an overall, you know, evaluation of the economy. That would be really silly. I just say that many of these problems are actually relevant to how these freelance platforms are trying to squeeze the value out of these people. Because look, like he had 1,000 reviews. I paid him $20, meaning that he did 1,000 jobs for $20,000, perhaps even less. Come on, this is so little. I mean, like there would be designers here in Europe who would take this for 2 or 3 jobs. You know, this guy had to do 1,000. I mean, like I didn't even feel that it's the right thing to do. You know, so I felt so bad about the service, about the whole experience, that I never actually hired somebody like this way again, because I felt that I would support Fiverr's take on freelance economy that is not really relevant to my values. I would much rather see this Bangladesh designer going on his own, you know, going outside of Fiverr, reaching out to clients, you know, trying to improve, you know, and gaining the capital and the experience needed in order to make it on his own, you know. It was so sad.
And I do have a question. I'm sorry.
Sure.
Okay. Any other questions or?
Yeah,
sure.
There's a question.
I do have a question.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
just wanted to give the input, but
Go ahead.
my question is a bit more to the beginning of the freelancing. I have a job, it's permanent, and I'm dipping my toes into freelancing from time to time, helping friends.
Your sister.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm in the field of marketing, and I have a friend who is a freelancer full time. And we often have that discussion, you know, the pros and cons, and she's like, why don't you just go full freelance, you know? And I'm like, yeah, but the security, you know, my job, my security, and how I feel about it, you know? And my question is simple. What would be the best advice or something you would give to somebody who is thinking about it, but not sure, in terms of how to prepare to go to freelancing without going completely scared about losing the security of their job?
Yeah.
And of course, this could be ceteris paribus, because we cannot exclude facts like rent and food, and you can't just
And kids.
all of a sudden, and kids, all of a sudden go on your own one day. I'm just asking for the general advice.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, and actually your way of going freelance is quite common. Like many freelancers actually start by so-called side gigs or side jobs, you know, occasionally freelancing, and I quite often hear a sort of, you know, running joke that it's not a joke, it's real, that people tell me that they say, well, you know, I was doing like a gig here, a gig there, and then it's sort of, you know, like blended into like ongoing freelance work. And only a couple of years later, I realized I'm in business. You know, like the transition was so smooth that there was not a single point when they would, you know, like decide, well, now I'd go for fully freelance. So quite a number of people go through this gradual transition. It's actually one of the best ways to start freelancing, because you are gaining data points, you are gaining, you know, intelligence about the market, and the intelligence about the market is the most important intel out there. When you understand the market, you know, you can market yourself. You can you know how much you can ask for certain work and so on. So gaining more and more experience and turning it into like better deals is actually a great way how to gain business intelligence. It's the best thing you can do. I mean, like the free market is the best teacher for entrepreneurs. You know, my general recommendation is definitely, you know, get the market experience as soon as possible. The market environment is so diverse that it will teach you better than any school probably how to, you know, manage the starting period of a business. Two more things. First of all, if you ever consider going fully freelance, I would recommend, you know, a more humble approach. So, you know, considering a possibility that it will not be as smooth as expected. So I would definitely be on the safe side here, especially if you have kids, you know, like building a stronger financial reserve, you know, arranging some deals in advance, you know, so pre-negotiating with some clients so that you know that you have some work lined up when you actually leave your employment. So trying to put as much security into the first step as you can, that would be great. So I basically do it still, you know, whenever I'm about to launch a new important project, like a new book, perhaps I'm now thinking about writing another one, I always try to finish things, you know, like build up my energy, my, you know, the overall setup so that I can sort of, you know, shift my full attention and full personal energy into something new. So actually closing things and, you know, making preparations for this new phase, I believe is very useful. Then there is this question of fear. You know, it's look, most freelancers I talk to report that they were really scared shitless, you know, when they were going fully freelance. And even though they knew that it's partially or overly irrational, you know, that's also my story. I mean, like, look, I'm coming from a pretty rich entrepreneurial family. My parents, when I was a teenager, they were running a company with 100 employees. They were really well off, you know. And still, when I was freelance, I first started as an independent contractor working for a single client, but then I decided that I would go fully freelance, working for, you know, any number of them, any number of clients. I still had this really irrational fear, like, what will happen if I don't succeed, you know, I believe that there is some deeper existential concern, you know, about the transition from a little more or less dependent state where you are told what to do by your parents, by your school, by your employer, or by a single client, as it was in my case, because he was sort of treating me like an employee, even though I wasn't one, to a state where you are actually going fully independent, and when you actually take the full ultimate responsibility of who you become and what you are going to do. You know, it's not about, you know, the fear that you will die on the street hungry, because it just won't happen in Europe, in advanced country like Bulgaria or Czech Republic or Spain, you know, where I was. So it wasn't that. It was something about, you know, becoming someone who is not shaped by other people's decisions and orders, but by actually one's own destiny. And this is the source of the fear. So what I want to tell you is that the fear won't go away, probably. You know, like, you may be lucky, you may be so transitional going from small gigs to full-time freelance that you won't experience it. There are cases like that. I heard a number of them, but it's still quite common that if there is a point where you actually make that step into unknown, it somehow touches something deeper within your soul, and the fear is there to warn you and to guide you, you know, because that fear is good, you know. I believe that this is something that makes you, that gives you a sense of urgency. It gives you a sense of purpose, that every day counts when you are a freelancer, and it will sort of help you to avoid the most risky situations. You know, you sort of realize that every action matters in this new situation, and this is great. So I wouldn't be, too concerned about getting completely rid of that fear, because it would turn you into a risk taker, perhaps more than you would like to. Not all of us are made of the same stuff as Elon Musk is, like he's really a risk taker, I admire his courage, but I don't have it. I'm covered in a way, and I believe that many of us are,
Okay. Any question?
Yeah.
Sure.
I always thought something really simple but essential for the freelancers. I've been freelancer for 15 years in Bulgaria, then I go to the big companies, work, learn, get whatever I want, and then I back to freelancing.
Mhm.
And for 15 years, when somebody asks you what are you doing, because I'm an artist, I draw, and then I'm a film director.
Mhm.
When they ask you, are you a freelancer, and you said yes, they were thinking, oh, she will have a lot of work and she will take less money than is needed. Like in Bulgaria, this is this kind of a mindset. Then 15 years later now, the situation is a bit different, because now every freelancer, because now there are a lot of freelancers first, and second, people feel kind of more secure with someone else, like single person, than the whole company. Like in my case, I work in a film marketing also, and big agencies and big companies are really hard to produce content and information and action fast.
Yeah.
In other case, in my case, I'm a single person with a lot of people that I work with. I'm doing things way more faster, but it's cost a price. And because I'm in the field of marketing, I'm asking you this: how you can manage the expectations to prove your point? Because marketing sometimes is something that is exists right away. Like you doing something, can you have results right away? And sometimes, most of the times, it's something that you're doing, give, and then the results come like 3, 4, 5, 6 months later.
If they came at all. If they came at all.
Yeah.
Sometimes there are this kind of opinion if they came at all. So how you manage the expectations to say that sometimes, because we are in the era of AI, of social media, when everybody expects everything immediately, which is impossible. I mean, nothing starts immediately and nothing's happening immediately. So how we can explain actually that the gentleman next to me says something really nice. He said, creative work doesn't count here. Like all the research and all the thinking that you put in your strategy, because I'm sure that you work a lot with the marketing also.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of intellectual work there, which you can't show. I mean, you can prove that it's done, and you can't show it because it's not something physical.
Yeah.
It's something that it's not a product. It's your mind that work with strategies and then build some projection of the future that your clients need to believe that are true.
Yeah.
Which is kind of more hard to believe than the AI.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Well, first of all, what struck me as interesting is that what you mentioned, that it's nowadays easier for you to get a client that trusts you in general, because this it's subsidiary to your main point, but I would like to put a stress on that as well, because it shows that it shows, in my opinion, important trend that, and I also understood it from other interviews I've had this week in Sofia, that this is a sign of an freelance economy getting more advanced in a country. When freelancers are so get easier to gigs that were previously assigned only to agencies. This is one of the signs that it's sort of, you know, maturing freelance economy. So I would, overall, I would say that Bulgaria is like on a pretty good course, because we are having this discussion here. I mean, like in a country where freelancing is not a thing, we wouldn't have it, you know. So that's one of the things that you sort of have to also think about the wider environment and actually realize that it may sound silly a little bit, but you sort of create a market as well, you know. Like if, for example, look, there is this group back in my home country of Czechia where there were like women who were involved in marketing and who sort of had a feeling that that they face challenges other than men, and they sort of created a group called Holkis Marketing, like Girls for Marketing. They only gather women, they educate themselves business-wise, you know, and they sort of, you know, brought up the whole marketing industry in a way that it reflects better the needs of women entrepreneurs. So actually, like any one of us, you know, can do something that sort of, you know, educates the whole market, and so that the clients, you know, sort of know what to expect, you know. But this is like a long-term goal, so I just want to put it aside, but I just wanted to mention it, that it's not only about, you know, solving the individual clients, but also about sort of grouping with others and sort of doing activities that you know, share the best practices, you know, and sort of try to educate the market in a certain way. The second thing is that of course, as a marketer, you are certainly aware of performance measures in marketing, so that would be one solution. Obviously, like if you are working in a marketing field where the results can be measured somehow, that would be my first recommendation. Even though if you are on a more creative side, you know, I would, you know, try to include this sort of measurement or like a case study production that would support your trustworthiness. But, you know, overall, I would be careful about, you know, making these generalizations about, you know, like Bulgarian clients don't value this, you know, and they are like this, you know, because it sort of creates or your mental image, you know, that the whole market is like this, but it's not true probably, you know. Like we have the same situation, or we had it like 20 years ago, but still, you know, the market is usually like way more diverse, and within this market, you know, like you are just a freelancer, so it means that you are like very limited working capacity, you know. Your goal is to not worry about, you know, how is the general market, you know, overall, but how to identify those few clients that perfectly match your skill set and that are, you know, solid, that are willing to pay for your results even without getting them right away, you know. This is the most important things, you know. Like, look, if I work as a business consultant, you know, I work typically for, I don't know, 5-10 clients a year, you know. I don't care about the rest of the market. It's not important, it's not even relevant, you know. I only care about these 5 to 10 people, how well I manage the relationship we have. I only care about measuring the value I'm creating for them, because if I understand the value I'm creating there, it opens an avenue for me to upsell this service, to bring it to like a next level, you know, so creating even greater revenue for them, and then revenue for myself. So when you sort of, shift your perception from, evaluating how the whole market is to the individual cases you work with, it completely transforms the way you think about your business as well, because you wouldn't be really concerned about this political news or this new measure that sort of influence all of us, but in a small way. I think this is really important, and so my recommendation would be try to either analyze or somehow estimate the value you are really creating for the people you work for. I mean, like, did they earn more thanks to your contribution? If so, how much? I mean, like, did it show in the revenue? And if the revenue grew, like, how big part of this growth was your contribution? That would also involve you getting more senior in your position within company, because junior marketers, they are usually not shown the real revenue data. They are usually shown only something that the manager shows them, So your immense interest is basically to move within any working relationship from a junior position, when you are sort of bossed around and shown only the data that you are allowed to see, into a more strategic and more senior position when you actually see the value that you are creating from the client, because this is the single most important point for you to move this relationship with this client to a next level and getting more out of the relationship and also creating more value for them. If you don't have this understanding, thanks to or due to the limitations they're set so that you don't access to information, whatever, this is a problem. And this is a real problem that you should solve, rather than getting too worried about general conditions. I would be more, I know it's counterintuitive, like, because it brings us more to a level like, how can I actually understand what I'm doing for the client? This is such a deep question, like what's the real value I'm delivering, and if you don't know the answer, if you cannot place a number on it or somehow grasp it, it would be very hard for you to up your business in the long term. So that would be my recommendation. Try to understand as best as you can what you are actually doing and what they are doing. When you have this information, when you understand it, this will create a whole new avenue for you to double, triple your rate or your income from the client, because you would understand, okay, if I put more energy into this, we can have like triple the revenue they had the last Christmas, for example, So that this is very important, and it's completely oblivious to many freelancers. They sort of look for the next new client without actually understanding what they did with the last one and with the previous one, Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Really.
Does it make sense?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry to interrupt you. It's really very interesting conversation, but we are exceeding the official time. So we will close the official part of the meeting, and we will have some unofficial for a short, just to have something. And
Sure,
okay,
sure, absolutely.
for the people here, you have a little bit more time. And thank you for all of you which are watching us online. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So if any of you have something more, we can.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Really, we need to
No,
keep
no
it
worries,
because
no worries.
it's
That's
on
okay.
the
That's
record.
okay.
It
Yeah.
needs to be on the online.
Sure.
By the way, there was a very good question. You took my question, which I was preparing to Robert, but there is a very big issue with all the people starting. I passed this road. I'm already on this road also, and it's about the fluctuation ups and downs in the business, which are coming immediately after you go on the free market.
Yeah.
And that's the real struggle, and that's the fear where it's coming from, mainly because sooner or later you go down.
It's also a lack of knowledge, I would like to say, because that's why your book and such as this are so very good, because a lot of times people have some kind of experience or I don't know.
Хареса ли ти? Да, ние сме пуснали запис, забравих така да пуснем запис.
Yeah, sure, sure.
Нали записваме? Не записваме тук вече. Записваме, но можеш да го запишеш.
Yeah.
Как ти хареса, благодаря ти?
Yeah, sure, sure.
Пусни един запис за това. Ако... Защото...
Ти вече знам, че всички трябва да правим вече да съдържаваме. Повече заложим,
Yeah,
че
yeah.
някой го казва, голямата разлика в приходите на хората.
Как се продава?
Освен това, нали, ти ако работиш за света,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
сравнява с това работиш.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I really like a question because I know how huge issue it is, you know, and I would definitely, you know, encourage you to go to your clients and ask for data. It's like, yeah.
Как беше? 10 минути, какво ме изчезна? Hope you are not late. Sorry. The kids?
Yeah,